Thank you for joining us again on another episode of Get Ready News. I'm Mark Lindsted. This is my brother David Lindsted, and we like to cover the news from a biblical standpoint. And we've got several stories this week that I think is going to be very interesting. Part of it would be the Trump verdict and the Trump trial. Some of the things are waning support for Israel and just many other stories that we're going to look at today.
A lot of things that are changing the face of what's going on, and we see a lot of shifting behind the scenes, and I'm seeing things going wrong here, if you will, and I see what looked like people were coming together for Israel is starting to really wane, and they're coming against Israel now.
Yeah, well, and we can see that in our own schooling. We've covered that to some extent already, how our colleges and our youth, evangelical youth support for Israel is failing as well.
Absolutely, and I saw an article the other day with Iran was praising the kids from the leftist colleges for what they were doing, standing up for Palestine. Of course, we know there is no Palestine, but standing up for Palestine. So.
Well, I saw a crazy video this week that had a man with a full beard and a very hairy chest wearing a dress.
Oh,
and he said, "Man, I'm so excited this is the first day that I've dressed feminine from head to toe, and I went to the board of directors to talk about this and that." And he's wearing a lemon dress, and on top of that, he goes, "And I wore my kayfa." And I'm like, first of all, that's not a feminine piece of gear. You better watch out when a Muslim finds out you calling that feminine, because that's what the men wear to depict where they're from. You know, white and black is Palestine, red and white is Jordanian, and I can't remember all of them, but they have different meanings. And then one that's more black with white accents is a Bedouin.
Yeah, and the problem is that the Muslims will use these people to gain a foothold into things. And, you know, back in the World War I, World War II era, we called them useful idiots.
Yeah.
It wasn't a derogatory type of word. It was more about what the idea was behind it. And they're using these people. And as soon as they get a stronghold or wherever they're going to be, they will turn on these people right away.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's like I've said many times, the alphabet soup gang cheering for the Islamic gang is just like the chicken cheering for KFC.
It absolutely is. And as soon as they get enough people and got what they would consider to be in power, those alphabet people will be killed. Yes. I don't mean just mocked. Well, they will be killed.
I think the minimum sentence for homosexuality of any kind, male or female, in Sharia, I think the minimum sentence is 10 years, but the real sentence is to throw you off a building.
Yes, exactly.
It's crazy to think that people who should be in fear of their lives from this type of person would be the ones cheering for this person to win.
Yeah. You know what strikes me very, very much, and I find this very interesting, and this is something that I spoke with Dad about, and I said, you know, it's funny, there's really only one, and I'm just going to use the word religion, just as a surface for right now, and we can discuss that later, but there's only one real religion that's persecuted around the entire world, and that's Christianity. None of the other ones are persecuted.
No.
And it leads me and shows me that this is probably the only religion that would be true, because Satan condones all the other ones.
Yeah, the truth is being persecuted, not the lie, because the lie takes you away from the truth.
Exactly.
So it's interesting that every single faith persecutes the truth. And I'm going to say that right now, every single faith. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. This isn't just a Muslim problem.
Oh, no.
This is a Catholic problem as well.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you, I don't know what our audience base really is. I don't want to offend anybody here, but at some point I do want to offend you. And think to yourself right now, you weren't called Christians. Catholics were not called Christians until 1994, when the evangelical leaders, not my evangelical leaders, got together with the Catholic leaders and determined we're going to call each other Catholics, and we're not going to say bad things about each other.
Yeah, that's when they decided we were all the same. We were all Christian. Yeah. And we weren't supposed to proselytize each other. Yeah. And we can see that that's really not the truth. There's actually two separate and I'm going to use that word religions again. And religion, I don't like that word.
Yeah.
But I'm using it just as to talk about things.
Sure.
One of the other ones I find very interesting is Buddhists are supposed to be all about love, but they persecute Christians unbelievably.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's even the Hindu have millions of gods, but Christianity is hated.
Yes, yes. Trust me, I do work with India, and it's one of those things that when I go to India, I go as a tourist, and yes, I'm allowed to preach, but only inside the buildings. I'm not allowed to talk about religion outside in open areas.
Yep.
And it's really is persecuted there.
Oh yeah, and people are being stoned and killed
Yep.
all the time in India for professing salvation.
But guess what? Where there's persecution, there's growth.
Absolutely.
India is a hotbed of people coming to Christ when they hear the truth.
That and China and some of these other places too, wherever the church is persecuted, it really grows. And then we can see this evidence when Paul was in prison in Rome.
Yes.
And Paul's in prison and he's talking about, and the guards
Yeah.
say hello because they've become Christians because of Paul and the persecution that's happening there.
Well, what stories do we have this day?
Well, the first one I brought up was this one, and of course, we already know the verdict, but we're going to talk about this before the verdict, and then we'll talk about it a little bit after the verdict. But here we have the judge gave orders to the jury as they went in to deliberate about the case with Trump. And, the first thing you see is this headline that says, that it doesn't have to be unanimous. Well, there was a lot of fact checking here, and people confused what the judge was saying. And they said, well, he wasn't saying it didn't have to be a unanimous decision. But what he meant was that if you don't think that the one thing that Trump did wrong in the trial, if you don't find him guilty there, but you find him another guilty over here for another little one, then you are all together. Yeah. So he kind of changed the rules and how things were, and it looks like a kangaroo court.
Well, I can't remember the name of the senator, but I know there's a lady senator who went down and filed something with the Attorney General's office against him because not only does he as a Democrat donor.
Yeah.
Not only somehow did he end up with every high-profile Republican case, and not only that, he ended up with the indictment trial to begin with. Yep. So we want to know, was he scheduled for that indictment trial or was he appointed to that indictment trial? And then the next thing was his daughter has made over $9 million on this case already.
That just blows me over. I can't believe that. You would think of all places, America, you would have a good legal trial.
Yeah.
And all I see now is the same trial Jesus got.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not comparing Trump to Jesus. He's not Jesus. But these things are happening in the morning, in the evening, at night, and things are really...
Well, how many times do you hear people talk about China and Russia and all these countries and how, it's so crazy that these dictators can just throw their political opponents in jail and kill them? And well, guess what just happened?
Yep.
You got a dictator. In my opinion, Joe Biden is a dictator. He's ruled by executive order more than any other president. In fact, I think they said you could combine all the executive orders of the past presidents, and it's still not as many as he used.
Yeah, he is a dictator.
And then to find out that the DA for this case has had multiple visits to the White House up and leading up to this trial.
Yep.
I mean, this is a kangaroo court. This is a political sabotage of another person. And I think that they're really dumb for doing this because guess what? You're handing President Trump all the votes he needs.
Oh yeah.
The only way you're going to win is if you pull a fast one.
Exactly. And we see that it came back last night that he was guilty on all 34. I think there was 34 felonies. He came back guilty on every one of them.
Because he classified it as a legal expense when he was paying his attorney.
Yeah. But nothing really happened wrong.
But then they said that it's not illegal to pay somebody in an NDA to shut up.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
And let me get this right. This was $130,000, right? Mm-hmm. I think I remember that Bill Clinton paid somewhere in the neighborhood of $850,000 to people to be quiet about what he did.
Yeah.
Let's take him to court. I'm ready for him to get 34 counts.
Well, it's funny you say that. There's a passage in Habakkuk in chapter 1, and it's Habakkuk is saying to God, nothing ever happens. And the people that need to be prosecuted aren't being, the ones that are being. It says in chapter 1, verse 4, therefore the law is slacked.
Yes.
It says, and judgment doth never go forth. I don't know how many things we saw Hillary Clinton should be in jail right now. There is no way she should be walking free in the open place.
What would happen if they subpoenaed your phone and you took a hammer to it before you gave it to them?
Oh, yeah, there'd be some type of penalty. I would be in jail for something. Obstruction of justice, tampering with evidence.
Well, you remember, and I just want to point this out, Trump is not the original election denier.
No.
Hillary Clinton is the original election denier. You look at the interview she did months after the 2016 election, and she says he is an illegitimate president. He was not elected. He was nothing. It was stolen from us.
Yep.
So this whole rigmarole of he's doing this, and no one's ever in the presidential history ever said they don't trust it. Baloney.
Yeah. This was common that was LBJ that came with votes in the middle of the night, and all the things this is just a sign of the times. It's even getting worse. And that verse completes and it says, the wicked doth compass about the righteous, therefore wrong judgments proceedeth.
Yeah.
Therefore, we see stuff like this. And like I said, I don't think Trump is an angel. I don't think he's not done anything wrong. But you talk about someone who's been railroaded, and that the political opposition put him in jail to get rid of him.
Yeah. Well, he's a sinner just like me.
Oh yeah,
he's a member of the human race, so he's a sinner. He's done things he's not proud of. But when people ask me, well, why would you vote for him? I said, well, I'm not voting for my priest or my minister. I'm not voting for biblical doctrine here. I'm voting for someone who I think can run the business. And yes, America is a business, the best way it can be run for its citizens. Yes. And that's what I'm looking for. And I saw a TikTok live stream the other day that talked about communism wins. And you know what? I think communism will rule out into the U.S. someday.
Oh, I think so too. And I think that is the mark. That is the sign that the beast has taken over.
Yeah.
The beast needs a one world government, a one world economic, a one world religion in order to bring about what we call the end times, and he calls I'm winning.
Yeah. Well, what's next on our journey today?
Well, we spent a whole lot of money over in Gaza because, the Gazans need aid. They're in a bad way. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to make light of what could be innocent people caught in harm's way, and I don't have a problem helping those people. Yeah. And I think you're going to find that that's far and slim and in between that you're going to find real people.
They're in so much trouble that I remember 2 weeks ago I watched a video of Gazans on the beach having a vacation.
Oh, yeah.
So they're in so much trouble, but this pier, I mean, it doesn't get much more comical. I mean, you want to talk about an accurate depiction of this administration?
Yes, absolutely.
There'll be no troops on the ground. Well, we're going to put some troops on the ground to build a pier. The pier is going to cost $150 million. Well, let's make it $200 million. Well, sorry, got it wrong. $360 million. I can tell you where that money's probably gone.
Oh, yeah.
Ask Joe what his pocketbook looks like. Yeah. And then what happens?
The pier broke apart during the rough seas. So for $300 million, we couldn't even build a pier that can withstand rough water.
You know what? I would be happier to watch Joe Biden walk out with a bag full of money, $360 million. I'd be happier for him to walk out there in Delaware or wherever he is, walk out over the water and just throw it in the water.
At least we have a chance of getting it out of the water.
Good grief, this is ridiculous. Only this administration could do this.
The problem is this was just like throwing chaff in the wind.
Yeah.
Because as soon as they bring any type of aid here, Hamas,
Yes.
Hezbollah, all the terrorists will take it, and the people that it was meant for, and who knows what's really in there, because
Yeah.
I could see, America's had a good idea of playing both sides of the war, but they're going to take it, and the people won't get to see any of this.
Yeah, well, there's extreme accounts. There's perfect accounts. I say extreme. Maybe what I said. There's proven accounts that Hamas takes whatever's coming in and sells it to the Gazan people.
Yeah. Yep.
Not only that, you remember we covered when Israelis were trying to stop the aid trucks coming through the border at Rafah. Why were they doing that? Because when they opened the bags, it was bullets inside.
Yes. Yep.
It was rearming Hamas. It wasn't feeding people.
Yeah, and this has happened for as long as I can remember. How many times we would send aid to like Gaddafi or to those places, and those leaders would take it and then ration it out or charge people for it or send arms and other things covertly through that system.
Well, we're the only nation that taxes its citizens to send money to other nations. And some of these places, like I remember Gaddafi and a lot of these places, small dictators in Africa, they say, if you don't send us money, we're going to kill everybody. You know what? I know this sounds crass, but how about we don't send them money?
Yeah.
Because you're not having one to rule over if you got nobody left.
Yeah, a lot of that was just empty threats.
Yeah, they knew they could get it. Oh, I can get $10 million a month from the U.S.
I watched the TikTok of a lady, and she's standing in front of the map of America, and she says, all my tax dollars, I'd like it to go here. And she's pointing at the America, it says, not over here.
Can you imagine what we could do for the homeless?
Oh, yeah.
With our foreign budget?
Oh, yeah. We could have solved this problem. Just think of all the money we spent on illegal aliens. We have spent so much money on that. We're throwing our money everywhere but where it needs to go.
Well, we're building places for illegal aliens to stay and live for 2 years free in front of our homeless people who are watching us do this.
Yep. And some of those people
You have 10 minutes.
are veterans.
Yes.
And we are allowing our veterans to live on the street. We are allowing people that have mental deficiencies to live on the street like that.
Well, it's a sign of weak leaders. I guarantee that.
Absolutely. And the worst thing is all of this stuff that's going on is setting up the next issue, which is now there's getting waning support for Israel. They said, don't go into Rafah. It's not a place. You don't need to go in there. And they go in there, and what happened?
I'm sorry. I love Ben. I call him Benny. Benjamin Netanyahu. I love him. They say, hey, don't you dare go in there. He say, yeah, watch me. And Biden says, if you go in there, I'm not going to send you any armaments. He says, that's fine. We'll fight with our fingernails.
Yeah.
We're going to eradicate this threat to our people.
Yep. They went into Rafah, and what did they find?
Oh, terror tunnels.
Terror tunnels by the scores. And terrorists by the scores.
What's going on?
But yet, these countries, Spain, Ireland, and Norway, are condemning this, and now they are asking for a two-state solution.
That's funny that they're asking for a two-state solution. Guess who doesn't want a two-state solution?
Exactly.
The PLO.
Yeah.
Hamas.
Yeah.
Hezbollah. No, when they say from the river to the sea, they want every Jew dead and out.
That's right.
Period.
Yeah. There's not going to be a two-state solution by either side.
Yeah. Well, Israel has offered it.
Well,
the United States tried to broker it, and Hamas said, nah, that's okay. Yeah. We don't want that. We want you all dead. It's amazing. And now there's a push for this two-state solution, and I think there's even some that are recognizing them as a state now.
Oh, yeah. They're trying to push it through the UN, and I think the UN educational part of the UN is calling them a Palestinian state. Yeah. And one thing I think our uncle was talking about is they were talking about Israel as a territory, and Palestine as a state, where it's the other way around.
Correct.
It just shows me how things are lining up for the end times.
Exactly what the Bible says.
The Bible says everybody's going to come against Israel. Everybody's going to hate Israel.
Yep.
But yet, what is Israel doing? They're protecting themselves and getting rid of what terror came across that line.
Well, I can tell you as a father, if somebody attacked my home, I wouldn't stop firing back till I knew they wouldn't be able to come back to us.
Oh, I agree 100%. There is no doubt in my mind that that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Now we see another thing, and we've talked about this before, but this is a brand new article. Young evangelical people are pulling their support for Israel.
Well, and you know, I spent with being in the position I am with several ministries and publishing things on social media. I'm starting to see this horrible decay. I would call it a decay of people who claim to be Christian.
Oh, yeah.
And are not. Mm-hmm. And then there's more and more of these. I was a Christian. Yes, I was a real Christian, and I'm deconstructing, and I'm here to help you deconstruct. Well, I'm going to tell you right now. 1 John 2:19 says, if you were never with us, if you went out from us, you were never with us. You were never a real Christian. And I'm curious as to how many of these people are Christian in name only.
I think it's a whole large number, more than we could ever fathom, how many people are not actually Christians. Yeah. I think that there is a thing in this country especially, that people gravitate to something and call themselves something for a while until it becomes inconvenient. Yeah. Or becomes something a little tough. And then they go and they say, well, I really wasn't that, you know.
Well, you think Christianity would be very, very popular because persecution comes to the Christians.
Everybody wants to be persecuted.
So everybody wants to be a victim. So you want to be a victim, be a Christian. Yeah. They'll tell you can't post your video. They'll tell you you're a liar. They'll tell you you're fake. They'll tell you everything else.
And I've seen more and more and more. There's a couple of guys I like to watch on YouTube, and I'm not going to mention any names here, but all of a sudden they're leaving this political realm and getting into the religious realm and stating things they have no idea about, and trying to say that the church has replaced Israel. We just need to be totally devoid of the Israelis. It's just unbelievable.
Well, and this also goes along with the brainwashing of the children through school, through media, through social media, all these means.
Yeah, there is nothing of value really in our schools anymore. No. I go to the store, I go to places and interact with this next generation, and it just blows me away how stupid they are. And I use that word, and I'm not trying to be condescending to them, but I'm saying it's really not a good word to use.
Yep. So as we continue on with our stories here, what else do we have on the docket?
Here we have China is sending more aid to Gaza. We have China is getting involved in all sorts of different countries around here. So Russia and China working together, Iran and China.
I'm going to tell you right now, as an American, if China's involved, I know which side I need to be on.
Oh, yeah.
It's very clear.
Very clear. And the thing that I look at is in the end times, it says that Russia and Iran and all of its hordes are going to come against Israel, and Israel's going to defend themselves.
And it talks about even a 200 million man army, and guess who touted they have a 200 million man army?
That's right.
China.
And they're going to come from the east across a dry river. Well, guess what's drying up?
The Euphrates.
So they're going to be, and I can see all of this stuff in the background coming together and making, and that's not a good way to say it, but prophecy is being fulfilled. It is actually following what God said would happen.
Well, what I look at here, and it's in Revelation chapter 17, and I think if we look at verse 12, it says, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, or 10 rulers, which have received no kingdom as of yet, but receive power, and as these kings 1 hour with the beast." So what it's talking about these weak leaders. Mm-hmm. And these weak leaders are going to give all their power over to the beast because they're weak.
Right.
And we see this stair stacking of weak leader after weak leader after weak leader over everything. And I mean, our own Joe Biden is a perfect example of this.
Exactly. He's just a puppet.
Yeah.
He has no cognitive mind at all.
I don't know if there's a U.S.-based organization running him or a UN-based organization running him.
That's a good point, and I really see a lot of global influence everywhere.
One world religion.
One world religion.
One world government.
Yep.
One world currency.
Yep.
One world. I mean, do we need to keep going?
It's just really lining itself up, and I think back to our first story about Trump. as much as I don't want people to think that I'm just a Trump guy,
Yeah.
but he's also a thorn in the side
Yeah.
of globalism because he is not a globalist.
No. Yeah.
And you can see why everybody is against him, and America's against America because America is the last bastion
Yeah.
of non-globalism.
Well, and America really, honestly, truthfully, is the last ally of Israel.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And as long as America maintains its authority and its power, aside from being a globalist, Israel will probably be pretty safe.
Yeah.
But as soon as we collapse, and that's exactly what they want to happen, they want America to collapse. As soon as we collapse, then the globalists will take over this,
Yeah.
and they'll take over Israel.
It says in the first part of the tribulation that there's going to be an invasion of Israel.
Yeah.
And all of the friends of Israel are going to stand back and just watch it happen.
Yeah.
And then it says at the end of the tribulation, when the big war comes and Jesus comes back to put an end to it, everybody will be against Israel.
Well, in fact, I'm going to be in the Valley of Armageddon in about 39 days or so. I'm taking a trip with 40 travelers. We're going to visit the city of Jerusalem. We're going to visit Galilee. We're going to visit many, many locations in Israel. If you ever think you might want to join us on a trip, feel free to scan the QR code we're going to put up on the screen. All it's going to do is send you to a Google form where you can fill out your information, just your name and your phone number. And if you want some information, I'll reach out and we'll talk about some of our trips to Israel. July is not the only one. It's a little bit late to get signed up for that one, but we have one coming in November. I have another one scheduled for June of next year. And if we have enough interest, I'll make up more. There's no problem with that. But as we close today, we just want you to know that with all this chaos going on around us, with everything that we see, these weak leaders and these people coming against Israel and the deception, isn't it wonderful to know that God is still on the throne and he's still in control?
Amen. All these things that are going wrong, they are already accounted for and planned by God. He already knew this was going to happen.
Nothing surprises him.
No.
Nothing surprises God.
It occurred to me one day that nothing occurs to God.
That's a good way to say that. Perfect way to say that. Well, if you've never accepted Jesus Christ as your Savior, I pray that you do so. And tune back in with us next week as we look at some more news articles in the light of a biblical worldview. Thanks for joining us.